Hi, folks. Happy Friday. I hope that this email and this link to this video finds you all well. I hope that all of your classes, including the one that you're in with me, is going as best as possible, considering the circumstances that we all find ourselves in. I wanted to just send a really quick, hopefully quick video to you all for something that I would do normally in the class around this time. And that is just to advertise the classes that the Department of Philosophy is going to offer next fall. The reason why I do this is because I mean, one, I'm very passionate about philosophy. I'm very passionate about what it offers, both in terms of a minor, in terms of a major, but also if you just have enjoyed anything that we've discussed thus far in the first 6 weeks of class, even in the last two online, if there's been anything that has remotely piqued your interest and there's anything that you maybe want to continue to like dive into, I wholeheartedly support that and I encourage that. And so I wanted to just kind of offer, again, a recognition of the classes that the department is going to offer in the fall of 2020. So some of you are going to be familiar with some of these classes, others might sound kind of new to you, because philosophy isn't just kind of what we've been doing in our 103 class or our 200 class or our 240 class, but there's a lot of differing ways to go about philosophy. So I'm going to try to do this little split screen here, so give me just 1 second. I should have maybe been a little bit more prepared. All right, this should work all right. So, there's going to be a couple sections of ethics. So I know that many of you are in 103 right now, but if you haven't taken it, I will be teaching two sections. A colleague of mine will be teaching two other sections, Philosophy 103. Okay, so there's philosophy. Wait, this is, all right, great. Pardon me, sorry about that one. Philosophy 201 is critical thinking, which is like an intro to logic class. And so what you do and kind of how you kind of like dive into that is looking at the nature of the relationship between premises and conclusions, looking at fallacies, thinking about how arguments are constructed, what makes an argument valid, why ought we accept valid arguments, what can we learn from non-valid arguments. And particularly, I think this class would be really great to take, especially in an election year. So, because so many people are trying to get you to do certain things, i.e., vote for them or vote a particular way, and it's always kind of really beneficial to have a better grasp on on how arguments often that we see in politics are on all sides, on all stripes and all sides, are fundamentally flawed, or maybe not fundamentally flawed, but flawed for various reasons. So being able to kind of learn more about how to reason well, how to argue well, undoubtedly a beneficial skill. There is one section of business ethics. Um, and so if you are in the College of Business and you have taken 103 or you haven't taken 103, this might be a worthwhile class to look into, kind of taking general pillars of philosophical thought and turning them into and connecting them more with like the business world. So maybe a little bit more practical and bent. And then I'm actually teaching. This is a LaCroix in case anybody's curious. I'm not getting wild here yet. Excuse me. So I'm actually teaching a new course to me in the fall, and it's going to be the philosophy in film. And so just to make sure that this is very clear, it's not a philosophy of film. Okay, I'm not going to be deconstructing kind of the process of filmmaking because that's completely outside of any sort of expertise that I have. Um, but what we're going to be doing is I'm going to try to set this course up and kind of like section it off with various kind of interests in philosophy, various areas of philosophical thought, and then find movies that parallel nicely with that, that should allow for a rich investigation. So it's Philosophy 221. And I'm really excited to dive into it. And actually, kind of like being in quarantine has proved pretty useful to watch a lot of movies. So hopefully, I have a pretty good curated list of what might work there. And a classic example, which will not happen in this class, but a classic example is thinking about the allegory of the cave, which many of you are familiar with, and then thinking about the Matrix. Okay, like those two are very very similar, and you know that's a classic kind of example there. But we will not watch the Matrix. I will also be teaching Philosophy 240, which is Belief in Reality, so an intro class in metaphysics and epistemology. Really great class, one of my favorites to teach. Um, yeah, and if you are at all interested in minoring or majoring in philosophy, this is required for both the minor and the major, and I definitely recommend it. A colleague of mine named Bert is going to be teaching decision theory. I'm not too familiar with that course, but I know that he does a lot of modeling. He does a lot of um, kind of practical ways of thinking of why do people make the decisions that they do. Maybe reasonable to take. We also are going to offer the history of ancient and medieval philosophy, which is also required for the major or the minor. It's taught by a colleague of mine named Jamal. So kind of diving in deeper into ancient Greece, diving into more of those thinkers around the time of Kant, of Mill, of Hume. Yeah, really beneficial area of philosophical inquiry. And then the philosophy of biology, which is a 400 level course taught by a colleague of mine named Alita. So if you are at all majoring in the sciences and this would probably count as an elective in some capacity, and you want a little bit more, yeah, just kind of other questions to ask, right? And this would certainly be the class to do it. And I took a philosophy of biology class in my graduate years and really enjoyed it. And I'm not necessarily scientifically minded. Um, Another seminar class, a 400 level class, is the philosophy of language, and it's going to be just one day a week on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 6, taught by a colleague of mine named Casey. And the philosophy of language, I mean, basic question: how do these words have any meaning, right? Like, in what way do these sounds that are coming out of my mouth carry any meaning at all, right? Like what's going on there. So just thinking about the nature of language and how it maybe constructs reality, how it and shapes reality, how reality shapes language. Some really cool questions to ask. And then lastly, philosophy 452, which is environmental philosophy. So again, if you are at all studying philosophy, and if you're studying scientific majors, or environmental studies or natural resources, I would highly recommend this class. That's what my master's emphasis was in, and really important. So those are the classes that we're all offering in the fall. If you have any questions about those, feel free to email me. And again, also, as I sent out an email earlier in the week, as I sent an email out earlier in the week, please do consider those online classes that I offered. If you at all or friends that might want to take them in the summer, it's a nice way to kind of expediently get through a couple of gen ed requirements or kind of continue on advancing your degree. Also, I think you all should major in philosophy, or I think you should minor in philosophy. We set it up really nicely to pair well as a double major, or we pair it well for a doable minor. And I think that you would find that the riches of studying philosophy would not only benefit you intellectually, but also a lot of employers look for critical thinking skills. They look for the ability to solve problems. They look through the ability to communicate effectively. All of those are absolute skills that you develop as a philosopher. And so I highly encourage looking into the path of majoring or minoring in philosophy, of which our department makes it really, again, attainable to kind of pair that up. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to email me as well. Cheers. Have a great weekend.